Hi, I'm Eddie Obeng, and this is How. Daily, I bring you a different way to think about the world so you see it in a better light and are able to influence it to make your life better. And the clock chimes, bang on time. Okay, so um, today I've got a slightly different pet, people engagement tool for you. This is a composite pet. It's called the Biz-ModelRoadMap. In fact, we rebranded it to call it PetSnap, but I'll explain that. So one of the things you'd have learned, if you're following me so far, is that there are lots of individual tools which answer specific questions. Like, for example, the gap leap answers, is this worth the business effort? For example, sticky steps answers, what steps should I take in the fog? For example, Aladdin answers, who should I target and what do they want? So all these different pets have a specific answer to a specific question. And you'll know that if you look at the quick guides. But today I'm going to do something different, which I'm going to build for you a composite. So let's go on to Cube and have a look and make a start. So here we are on Cube. This is my executive office. And as you know, on Cube, the sun is always shining. Okay, a few clouds over St. Paul's, but what on earth? Okay, so let's have a look and see whether we can find our way to the whiteboard. Whiteboard, where's whiteboard? Whiteboard, be good whiteboard. Okay, there we go. So the whiteboard is behind me. I could have turned, but I'm being lazy. So let me tell you about this particular pet. So when you're trying to make a business work, it's useful if the machinery of the business actually fits together. Traditionally, you think about it like a locomotive. You know, we've got a bit of a marketing thing, which then sends out this message. You've got a sales bit, which does this. You've got a manufacturing bit. So you could mechanically think about a business as if it's a machine, in other words, a model. But in the fast-changing new world, you don't have years to spend building a new model because often you need to pivot, you need to flip. So you have to be able to build business models very quickly to match what your customers, your environment around you actually needs. So I'll tell you about the story and how I tripped over it. So I was working with a wonderful guy called Willem van Westberger, who is a master brewer at master brewer Heineken decades ago. And we were working on projects like the beer Keller innovation to try and get beer into people's houses and stuff. And I was working with Willem's team, which is the whole innovation team. I was teaching them a whole set of pets. And he had this idea. He said, well, we've got the individual pets, but it would be great if you gave us a way to connect these pets in terms of the most common challenges people have, almost like stepping stones. So what are the stepping stones? So I've got two examples here of the ones we did, which is things like, if you need to solve an issue, then what do? Well, you start off by thinking about the stakeholders, then you find them, then you, you start off finding the stakeholders, then you work out who the important ones are, then you work out what the value is in for them, then you work out which ones are going to trip you up, get into their minds, do a bit of persuasion with IDQB. Then we will be able to plan together, and then we'll work out an action replay and see what happens. So this would be what we'd call a route map for solving an issue. A bunch of pets tied together. This is another one, which we nicknamed kicking exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So that's when people aren't performing, when you're trying to get something done. So what type of project is it? How are we running it, etc., etc. So we tie them together, and it answers all the questions like, what's the problem? How are we going to deal with it? And so on. So that was the idea behind this whole idea of a route map. So I then had a client who had a challenge with the business case. So I strung a number of things together. I said, well, you need to make sure it's worth the business. Then you need to find out who's involved, and you need to work out what it means, what the customers want. Then you've got to test it to see whether the future is going to look as good as you want. Then you can implement it and you can see how it's going. So that was what we did for quite a while. We would call it a route map. Then we realized that actually it's better to think about it as a navigator, like the little thing you have on your dashboard in your car. So this is what we call a pet nav. It's the same thing, but we've captured now the questions as well as the pets. So why do I need to move to a new business model? So this one here, for example, is the strategy cones. So it's telling you what's most likely in the future. Will it be worth the effort? Gap leap, one of the ones people love the most, the business case one. And who will need to be persuaded? The one which actually looks at all the different players, the stakeholders in your business sphere. Then we have to create the business model. So what do people want? And we've just got all the typical pets you might need, and we've lined them up with the questions. And so to create a business model, you go through these and you end up with enterprise. Enterprise is a way of trying to break up your business to understand what each person, each department does, how you're going to manage it, how you're going to make sure you keep making money, how you're going to keep your customers happy, how you're going to get your staff to grow, and so on and so forth. So that would be it. So this is the PetNav business model. So if you are starting a new business, or you're about to flip or reposition or pivot your business, take some time to think about this PetNav business model, because it will let you carve something out which isn't just pivot and then we change everything. You'll actually end up with a model like that locomotive I started with, which actually works. I've been Eddie Obeng. Look up the quick guide. You'll find it there. Subscribe to the newsletter, and see you again tomorrow for How.